This is something that came up, I think, on the morning show a couple of days ago, one of the live shows that I did. Mascots, college football mascots that just don't make any sense. Some of them are obvious, but there are a few that I really had to think about, and I was like, you know what, that doesn't make any sense. So we're going to talk about that today. Now, some of these, like I said, some of these obviously don't make any sense. Some of them, the mascot doesn't match the team name because there's just no way to have a mascot of what the team name is. And some of these, I really had no idea why the mascot was what it was or didn't match the team name. So maybe you'll learn something in this video. I definitely learned something looking into this video. But let's start with a few that are just obvious. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Auburn. Now, Auburn's probably got more nicknames than any other team in college football. Officially, they're the Auburn Tigers, right? Their slogan or whatever is War Eagle, which has nothing to do with a tiger. And they're also referred to as the Plainsmen. Now, Auburn is a city in Alabama, and that's where Auburn University is. And that area of Alabama is called the Plains. So, the Plainsmen, right? But they're the Auburn Tigers, and they do have a tiger mascot. Albie the Tiger is his name, and he dresses up in the costume deal and runs around on the sideline at football games and basketball games and things like that. But do they have a live tiger? No, they have a live eagle. Make it make sense. And at the beginning of every football game, of course, some nitwit blows a whistle and, an eagle flies. And people are amazed. Look. That eagle just flew. That's what eagles do. That's what eagles do. It's not that big of a trick that you're acting like you somehow taught an eagle to fly. But anyway, Auburn Tigers, referred to as the Plainsmen, live mascot, an eagle. There you go. This one's pretty obvious too, and we might as well just stay in the state of Alabama. Alabama, the Woe Tides, as I call them, they yell Roll Tide. Their official name is the Alabama Crimson Tide. What really is a Crimson Tide? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Does it have something to do with the water looking red if the moon is a certain color? I really don't know. Of course, you can't have an actual tide as a mascot, and you can't even have a tide costume. So, of course, they have an elephant. Make it make sense. The Alabama Crimson Tide has an actual elephant that runs around the field and runs around the court on basketball games. Now, why an elephant? I'm glad you asked. Many moons ago, at a Gump football game, this is how the story goes anyway. Alabama was getting ready to take the field. As they came out of the tunnel onto the field, a fan in the stands yelled, "Watch out for the stampede." And somehow that spread. Stampede. What do you think of when you think of a stampede? Well, obviously elephants. So Alabama adopted the elephant as their human mascot inside of a costume. So while these first couple might be a little bit funny, and they are funny, the Alabama one makes sense at least. You can't have a Tide mascot. There's just no way to pull that off. Auburn, they're just confused. 3 different names, War Eagle, Plainsman, they have a tiger mascot, whatever. Third on the list, this is one that you guys are probably familiar with, but there is a twist to this one too that I didn't know until looking this stuff up. Stanford. What is Stanford called? The Stanford Cardinal, right? So obviously their mascot is a what? A tree. That's right, a tree. Now, I know California is known for a couple of different kinds of trees, the big redwoods, different things like that. But why not just be like the Stanford trees or the Stanford redwoods or the Stanford pine trees or whatever it is? No, Stanford Cardinal, but a tree is a mascot. Now, this is where it gets from kind of silly to weird. Well, first of all, before I move on from the tree part of this, you've seen the picture, okay? What kind of tree is this? I'm serious. It looks like some kind of a mix between a Christmas tree and Mr. Potato Head. Doesn't it? It looks like a fake Christmas tree that someone has stuck Mr. Potato Head lips and eyes on. That's what this thing looks like. If you're gonna be a tree for okay, you're a Stanford Cardinal. You want to have a tree mascot, fine. There's got to be a company somewhere that can make a better looking tree thing than what y'all got going on there. It looks absolutely ridiculous. Come on, it looks ridiculous. Why don't they just have a Cardinal mascot? Is that what you're thinking? That's what I was thinking. Well, guess what? They're not called the Stanford Cardinal because of the cardinal bird. In fact, they're not called the Stanford Cardinal because of any type of bird at all. Stanford couldn't even be bothered with attempting to come up with a mascot. They didn't even try. The cardinal, the word cardinal in the name, the Stanford Cardinal, just refers to the color of their uniforms. That's it. I'm dead serious. I had no idea. Let me know down below, did y'all know that? I always assumed the Stanford Cardinal, it was a bird, but for whatever reason they had a tree as a mascot. I just thought they were mentally deficient in some type of way. I had no idea. No, the term cardinal in the Stanford Cardinal is not a cardinal bird. It's not a bird at all. It's literally just it's literally just their school color. That's it. They couldn't even be bothered to try to come up with a mascot. Imagine, let's think of one. What about the North Carolina Baby Blues? The Georgia Reds? The Penn State Whites? What else? The Ohio State Scarlet and Grays. I mean, come on. All you did was pick the color of your school. You couldn't even try it, and you got a Mr. Potato Head tree running around. Not sure what's going on. What about this one? Maybe you'll learn something here. Again, this is somewhere where I learned something too. North Carolina. What are they? The Tar Heels. The Tar Heels. How would you mascot that? I don't know. So clearly they had to come up with something else. What kind of a costume would you do for a Tar Heel? Why are they called the Tar Heels? Well, way back when, and probably, I guess still, the pine industry, the pine tree industry was big in North Carolina, and they would use those pine trees. They would produce a lot of different stuff out of those pine trees. Turpentine, tar, whatever. So that's how they got the name the Tar Heels. Well, hard to dress that up in a costume, isn't it? Yeah, it is. So what did they decide to do? I know what you're thinking and what would have made perfect sense, but no, they do not have a giant cigarette running around the sideline, which would make perfect sense for North Carolina, Tobacco Road. No, they do not have a giant cigarette running around the sideline. What do they have? A ram, of course. Why wouldn't they have a ram? When I think of North Carolina, I think of rams. So I guess it kind of makes perfect sense. Was there anything else about what's named Ramesses? This is kind of funny. Why a ram? Well, in 1924, they were hot doo-doo, which, like they have been most every single season in football. They were absolute doo-doo in 1924, and the head coach at North Carolina, I wrote this scholarly individual's name down, I think, didn't I? Yeah, no, I didn't. No need. Anyway, the coach said, I know what we need. I know what the problem is, and I know what we need. We need a mascot and he specifically named 2 schools. We need a mascot like NC State has the Wolf, and like Georgia has the Bulldog. We need one of those. Ram. Why Ram? Well, there was a player on the team. He was a fullback. He was one of the best players on the team that year. You got to remember, believe it or not, fullback used to be an actual position in football. I know it's gone now. But yeah, he was one of the best players on the team, and he was referred to as a battering ram. So North Carolina adopted the mascot of a ram in honor of the fullback on the team that year, way back in 1924. Moving right along at a snail's pace. Here's another one that makes sense why you have 2 different things. The Iowa State Cyclones. Pretty hard to have somebody dress up like a cyclone, right? So, of course, you got to pick something else. Now, Stanford Cardinal, not named after the bird. Iowa State's mascot is actually a cardinal, the bird. Why? Same colors as Iowa State. Isn't that weird? Stanford chose their nickname to be the Cardinal specifically because their colors were cardinal. Iowa State is the Cyclones, can't dress up like that, so they chose the Cardinal, the bird, because it looked like Iowa State's uniforms. Kind of a weird synchronicity there. So yes, obviously Iowa State has a cardinal as a mascot, picked only because it had the same colors as their school and their uniform. Moving right along. Tennessee. Tennessee's an interesting one. Of course, they're the Tennessee Vols, and I think most people know what that means. Vol is short for volunteer. This is a reference to the War of 1812, in which the President of the United States asked Tennessee for 1,500 volunteers to help in the war against Great Britain, the War of 1812. Tennessee then became known as the volunteer state, and thus the Tennessee Vols. So what is their mascot? Well, obviously, it's a coonhound, a blue-tick coonhound that looks like it has mange and parvo both at the same time, malnourished. I mean, you can count his ribs. Look, it's pretty sickening. Why a coonhound? Well, coonhounds just happen to be very popular in Tennessee. So kind of like North Carolina, Tennessee made the decision a long time ago that they wanted an animal-type mascot. They actually published a article in the newspapers in Tennessee, ran a contest, provide the best blue tick hound. That's who we'll pick. That's how Tennessee got Smokey the dog. They also have a live-action Smokey that dresses up in a Smokey the dog costume. So they have the real dog. Georgia is this way, right? They've got Ugga, who's the actual dog, and then they've got Harry Dog, who is a man in a costume that looks like a dog. Tennessee, the same thing. They've got an actual blue tick hound, and then they have a live-action mascot dressed up in a blue tick hound costume. But they have a third mascot, symbol, whatever you want to call it, that sort of harkens back to the name the Volunteers. Davy Crockett. Here you go. You can catch this guy wearing an Indian costume with a musket and a coontail hat. You go to a Tennessee game, you see 100 of these people, but they actually have an official one that represents the school, which is hilarious to me, that you have a mascot or some sort of symbol that you use to represent your school. Davy Crockett, who's best known for dying in a battle that he lost, the Alamo. But Tennessee, no stranger to losing battles. So kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Number 7, one of my favorites, FSU. This is a little different because they're the Florida State Seminoles, and yeah, they've got an Indian as a mascot. Or do they? Or do they? No, they don't. And this is why I even put this on the list. You already know this story if you've watched this channel for any amount of time. There's the Texas helmet, by the way. Somebody keeps asking me, where's the Texas helmet? I told you, it's on the top shelf on the end. It's right there. Now you're going to ask me, why is it upside down? Well, you lost to Kansas. That's why. Beat Kansas. I'll turn it back right side. Which? Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, Florida State. Right. They're the Florida State Seminoles. They have a mascot what dresses up like an Indian, dresses up like a Seminole. Chief Osceola, I believe, is his name. Rides a show pony named Renegade. Here you've seen the picture, you've seen the video. There it is. But it's not actually an Indian. Of course, it's a white boy. It's a fraternity on Florida State that provides this. The guy gets a full scholarship. They go out, they pick some rich white boy. They give him a scholarship every year to dress up like an Indian and trot around on that show pony. Ridiculous. Make it make sense. Can't you get a real Indian? Of course you could. For whatever reason, you don't want to. And this brings me to the coup de grace. This one takes the cake here. This one takes the cake. Now, at first, this is going to make sense. But at the end, I'm going to show you it makes no sense at all. The Miami Hurricanes, much like the Iowa State Cyclones or the Alabama Crimson Tide, you cannot dress somebody up like a hurricane. I get that, okay? So it's perfectly reasonable to sort of pick another representation of that, right? Miami has picked a bird, the ibis. Why the ibis? Well, according to legend, an ibis is the last bird to leave the coast when a hurricane is coming in. and the first bird to return after the hurricane blows through. So it represents bravery, courage, sticking around to fight for your land, whatever, however you want to look at it. Bravery and courage, I guess. So it makes sense. It makes perfect sense to me, okay? I get it. You can't dress someone up like a hurricane. Pick something that sort of has to do with that, which you did with the ibis and the whole hurricane analogy. That's great. Here's the problem, okay? Here's an ibis. I'm going to put a picture of an ibis up right now. That's an ibis, okay? Now I want you to look at Miami's mascot. That's a fucking duck. That's a duck. I'm sorry. That is a duck. This blew my mind. I've known the story about the Miami Hurricane and the ibis for a long, long time. Why? I'm glad you asked. Well, why wouldn't I know? I'm the world's biggest closet Miami Hurricanes fan. So yes, I know the story about. I've known the story about the ibis. But I'll admit, I never actually Googled what an ibis looked like until this came up. I just assumed an ibis kind of looked like a duck. Hell, I even thought maybe an ibis was a duck. Some type of duck, a breed of duck or something. Because the Miami mascot has always been this damn duck. That's not an ibis. An ibis looks more like a flamingo or a swan or something. It looks nothing like a damn duck. But the Miami Hurricanes are out here running around on... Look, I thought the turnover chain was dumb, and it is dumb. You know what's dumber? Being called the Miami Hurricanes, having an ibis as a mascot, but a goddamn duck running around the sideline.